All right, thanks everyone. My name is Benjamin, and I'm really excited to be here today. The title of this talk is Cheat Codes for Builders, and basically the idea is I've been exactly in your shoes. I was a UT student, I went through this, I came to UT Austin because I had ambitions of being a startup founder, and now, fast forward plus 3 years from graduation, I've gotten a lot of experience under my belt. And I want to try to share with you basically the lessons that I wish someone told me before I started. So as like kind of a fun analogy to follow along with, when I was growing up, I played on the Nintendo DS Lite, and like the whole goal of Pokemon is to catch them all, to like catch all the Pokemon, but it takes a lot of time and effort. But one day I discovered you can go to GameStop and buy this thing called an Action Replay, and if you plugged it into your Nintendo DS, all of a sudden you got infinite Pokeballs and you could easily catch all the Pokemon. So it was like a real world cheat code that I remember as a kid, and I'm going to try to share with you what I think are the best cheat codes I know for entrepreneurship. Okay, so quickly, like, why would you even listen to me? What experience might I have? I grew up a gamer, played competitive chess, Dota 2, tackle football. And I saw like HBO Silicon Valley early on and wanted to be an entrepreneur. Fast forward a number of years, I'm proud to say I'm living those dreams. Those early ambitions brought me to UT Austin. I got degrees in the honors program in finance and business administration. I think part of my real business tuition or curriculum was zeroing out my net worth a few times on Robinhood, under my desk during lectures. And so after doing that a bunch in 2021, I was able to finally have some investing wins in the bull run, and have been able to support myself and in large part fund my company ever since. So a lot of you guys are part of the day-to-day grind. If you're in the, how many of you are in the business school by chance? Okay, a lot of you. So the cool thing to do is go be an investment banker or whatever, because the university wants to see that. So I played that game. I had the job lined up, at the prestigious firm in San Francisco. But in 2020, I basically discovered this thing that we now call decentralized finance. The fact that people were building a brand new open financial system on the internet, powered by crypto and smart contracts. So once I saw that, I just decided to go all in with a very uncertain future right before my senior year of college. So I kind of felt like I had 1 year of runway to figure something out, and I just went super hard, and it's been an amazing ride. In fact, our first funding was from UT Genesis. They gave us $20K in an equity-free grant, which is pretty cool. So I definitely recommend you guys do that and get the free money. Pretty helpful. And yeah, so we started in 2020, and what Rubicon is we're building the world's last financial exchange. So we're trying to build an open financial system for the world that gives everyone in the world equal root access for the first time. And this is a far cry from how money and the global financial system works today. So yeah, since inception, we're now approaching $200 million in lifetime volume traded through our platform. We were accepted into Y Combinator in the summer of 2021. And we actually passed, which I think is probably quite rare. We passed because myself and another business partner who's actually a UT dropout, we were doing quite well in financial markets and decided to just fund it ourselves. And so now we have a big community, lots of Twitter followers and all this stuff, and we're kind of getting the growth engines going, and we're working towards decentralization and launching our own coin, and kind of the next leg up in growth, if you will. So I work full-time on Rubicon. I do a lot of investing and trading, including some in startups, and I love to game, love Dota 2, love to work out and hang out with my small circle of loved ones. And yeah, so here's what I wish someone told me when I was in your shoes. Okay, so I think the best analogy for entrepreneurship is mountain climbing. And basically, it looks something like you pick some ambition, we're going to solve this problem, or Elon, we're going to go to Mars. And you choose something way in the distance, up in the clouds, that you can't even see. And the whole game is kind of getting the band of boobs together, like squatting up with your party and trying to climb the mountain. And the thing is it's really damn hard to climb a mountain. In fact, there's a lot of like traps and tricks along the way. So you have to like keep everyone fed. That's like financing basically. And if you want, at least if you don't want to be going alone, and as you're going up the mountain, a lot of times, you know, this is emblematic of what's known as a false peak. If you've ever been hiking, when you're climbing up, you might look like, oh, it's right there. Like the next thing that we need is right there. And you get there and you realize that it was vapor and you were actually wrong. And not only were you wrong, you have to backtrack and go back down to go back up the correct path. So it's, yeah, I think the mountain climbing analogy is the best analogy for entrepreneurship. It takes a long time. It's much better if you don't go alone. Keep your squad fed and, you know, look out for trolls. There's going to be a lot of like scary stuff along the way that's going to attack you, pop up that you won't expect. But you just have to understand that that's the game. Like no one has a direct path up the mountain. It doesn't exist, because if there was a clear direct path up the mountain, everyone would have done it. It would have already been done. There is no opportunity. But that's not the nature of entrepreneurship. The real alpha, the real benefit in entrepreneurship is the fact that most people are not willing to even start the mountain climb, frankly. Okay, so this is another big misconception, I think, in startup world, and that is the fact that it will take years, parentheses, many years. You know, like, especially like HBO Silicon Valley, or, you know, you see Zuck dancing around in his new chain or whatever. It's like everyone thinks that they're going to start a startup and like get rich really fast. That is far and away the exception and almost never happens. In fact, it's not really logical that it should happen. And when it does happen, it's usually because someone is both sort of like very lucky but very skilled, which we'll talk about. So there's a great Twitter account that I love. It's called Visualize Value. And my friend Jake in town, who's an entrepreneur, he's a big champion of this, and I think it's the right way to look at it, where, yeah, you can see this progression curve here, and this feeling of like, oh, this is pointless, I might as well quit. But if you zoom in, this is exactly what a compounding progression looks like mathematically, right? Like if you get 1% better every single day, and you just do that for 10 years, you zoom out, and it looks something like this. You know, like, for instance, you know, Tesla didn't turn a profit for like well over a decade, and then in year 12 or whatever, they start making hundreds of billions of dollars. And it looks like it all happens overnight, but there's no overnight success. It's always years and years of grinding and iterating, playing this game where you compound progress over a long period of time. So 2 quick stories on it taking many years. Does anyone know what red swoosh is? Insane bonus points if you do. I assumed not, which is the case. So everyone knows what Uber is, but people don't know Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber's story pre-Uber. He started a company in college coming out of college, they got sued for $500 billion and blew up famously. After, that was called Scour. After that company blew up out of college, he was super depressed, so he's already like 0 for 1 basically. And then he started this company, Red Swoosh. And you know, he talks about it, and I'm gonna put this on YouTube and share all the links in the description so you can see it. He calls it his blood, sweat, and ramen years. And for 5-6 years, Red Swoosh wasn't successful, wasn't turning a big profit. He was living with his parents, and he was grinding it out. He was playing this game, and somewhere in year 7, they were acquired for $20 million by Akamai, and then he immediately started Uber, and off to the races. So we're going to kind of follow the Travis Kalanick story a little bit through the slides. And of course, this is an epic one. If you don't know the story of Elon with SpaceX, I really recommend you look into it. This is literally Elon staring at the rubble of one of their early failed SpaceX rockets, sitting there in some random island in the Pacific that they were able to launch off of. And they basically had money for 4 rockets before Elon went bankrupt. And the first 3 all blew up and failed. And they bet it all on the 4th launch, and they hit it off. And here they are, I believe 17 years later, and they're sending humans to the moon, where NASA has not been able to of late. So it's going to take a long time. So just like buckle up and enjoy the ride. Cool. Yeah, so continuing on from like compound progress, I think like the way a startup looks and feels locally is like, it's almost like a very noisy chart where you might make huge gains one week and you're up big, and then you realize like, oh, holy shit, this was totally wrong, and you have to backtrack and you're way down here. So locally, it's very noisy, but when you zoom out, you get this like beautiful compound progression, and in year 10, everyone's like, wow, this guy's a genius, and now he's a billionaire. It's like, well, it took a long time. And so this is a really cool chart, which is like what that local experience is like. It's like, oh man, this next thing is gonna be huge. And then you chase it and you're like, oh wait, no, it's not what we thought it was. And then not only was it not what we thought it was, but we just wasted all these resources and all this time, and this is super hard, and how can anyone do this? And entrepreneurship is impossible. And then you can either quit or continue on, and you continue on the journey. So just know that that's normal. Like this experience of failure and trying and iterating, taking a shot on goal, likely failing, learning, and taking the next shot on goal. That's what the day-to-day should be. You should be throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks, and always experimenting, always taking shots on goal. Yeah, so the title of this slide is Hard Work is Overrated. I think that's another misconception people have. People, and I will tell you how I failed at this, basically. People think like, oh, all I have to do is program for 12 hours a day for a week, and like, I'm gonna get funded, and then like in 2 years, I'm gonna have like a sweet house in Miami. It's like, no, it does not work this way at all. And in reality, it feels like you need to be working all the time, but what you really need to do is be making smart decisions all the time. Because if you can find the right way to climb the mountain and like kind of in a very like cautious, smart, learning approach, if you can avoid these false peaks and figure out the right path sooner, it won't matter how fast you ran or walked up the mountain on any given day or week. You know what I mean? It's all about making good decisions fundamentally. Now, working hard will accelerate your learning rate and will kind of show you what the good decisions might be. But I can share a story where I failed. There was a time building Rubicon where I was basically abusing drugs like caffeine, and like I would code like 10 hours a day, eat one meal a day, and then like go to sleep, wake up, do it again. And I was just like, we just gotta bang this out and it's gonna happen. And in hindsight, we were building a lot of the wrong stuff, and we were kind of going the wrong path up the mountain. And at that period, if I could go back and tell myself, it's like, hey bro, like don't work so hard. In fact, take care of your health, make smart decisions, and figure out kind of like the right path to do it and figure out the right things to do. That's much more important than working hard. And I think in like the grind culture of today, it's like, oh dude, if you're not doing, like 12-hour days and you're a loser or whatever. And I think that's just totally false. Okay, quick story. This is one that no one knows about, but I love it as a gamer. So these guys built BattleBit, literally a team of like 2 or 3 indie devs. And BattleBit's an online multiplayer shooter. And for years, 4 years of development, where do they start off? They start off like, all right, we have some like MVP game. We're gonna like force our 3 friends to play it specifically on Saturday, and let's see what happens. They do their play tests, they learn, they iterate. They do play tests, they learn, they iterate. They go from corralling people to play once on Saturday so they can learn from it, to all of a sudden they're doing bigger and bigger play tests. They're growing a community, they're developing, they're iterating the product, they're learning from the marketplace. All the buzzwords you guys know, like you kind of know what to do. But again, I think for me, the big misconception was the fact that this stuff happens overnight, which it definitely doesn't. And so after 4 years of developing this thing in like a private beta, basically, they launched BattleBit live on Steam, and they launched the product live, knowing they have it, right? Because they've tested it enough with users, they know it works. And I think overnight they were one of the fastest selling indie games in the history of Steam. They all individually made millions of dollars, and it was a massive success. People see the overnight success on Steam when it goes live, but people don't see the 4 years of grinding and learning from their marketplace, and that's just what it takes. Yeah, it's funny, like Jensen Huang has a quote like this where he's asked, like, building NVIDIA, he's like, they're asking him, like, like, what would you tell yourself if you were starting over again? He's like, don't do it, way too painful. And it's funny that these guys have the same thing. They're like, dude, that shit was terrible, don't do it, is what they're saying to the world. Like, be careful if you want to do this, basically, because it's going to take a long time. Okay, this is another counterintuitive cheat code I wish I knew. And this is the fact that you are the product. I will repeat it. You are the product. And again, everything I'm describing is stuff that I did not understand when I was in your shoes. So it feels like, oh, I just have to build like the right web app and build the right mobile app or ship the right thing and everything's gonna happen for me. It's like, sure, technically, physically, that's what's happening, but in reality, again, remember, it's mountain climbing, and you are the leader of the pack as the founder or an early stage member, and so everything comes down to you. So like I was telling you about that period when I was doing Rubicon where I was working like crazy, but I was burned out, I was making terrible decisions, I was being like a bad manager, bad teammate, all this stuff, and I slowed down our progress massively, and I like backtracked in a lot of ways because I didn't understand this. I thought you just have to pour your life force into a thing and everything happens, when in reality, you are the product. So what do I mean? If Elon, Elon can start any new company and instantly get funded tens to hundreds of millions of dollars, instantly launch a new AI thing, Neuralink, you name it. Why? Because he is the product. Said differently, he has the skills. Skills is something I greatly underrated when I was getting started. Again, I thought it's just like, oh, you just do the thing. You just mine the gold and you get gold. It's like, no. You have to get really good at playing the game. And these are all guys with really good skills. So now, it seems like everything Elon touches turns to gold. It does. But that's because he's done the decades of learning and progress, developing himself, learning how to build products, learning physics, learning all of these engineering skills and management skills and all this stuff. And it takes time to learn, and it takes trial and error to learn. And I think that's something I really underrated. So I told you about Travis Kalanick. He blew up a company out of college. He was in the desert for 5-6 years thereafter, and finally made his second company work. He does Uber, and he becomes a billionaire, and now he's doing Cloud Kitchen. And do you even have to guess if Cloud Kitchen is doing well? No, they're killing it. In fact, there's talks that Uber might acquire them, and he's smashing it. And it's not because this is not luck, right? I think that's another big misconception. It's like, oh, Elon got lucky. It's like, no. He's been doing entrepreneurship for decades and decades and decades with a hell of a CPU on his shoulders and the right skill set and the right network and the right know-how. None of it is luck because these guys have the skills and they are the product. And again, that's very counterintuitive, but I wish that was something I knew. Yeah, this guy is a guy you can see on YouTube. I like him a lot. I call him Sales Chad, but his name is Alex Hormozi. And he's who I heard this from, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And he's a big one. And again, this guy zeroed out his net worth a few times. Wasn't working. 27, 28, it hits. He gets that first kind of big compounding vertical move in one of his businesses, and now it looks like everything he touches turns to gold. It's like, well, it's not because he's lucky. He just has all the skills and all the knowledge to put this thing in place, and now capital too, which helps him. So lastly, I'd say one thing, if I could go back in time and do better, if I did a better job of literally working less and taking care of myself more, I would be much farther ahead than I am right now. But I learned this lesson the hard way. So if you asked me before I started Rubicon, I probably thought mental health was something of a myth. But man, you will never get punched in your face more than building a startup. And I've been in fights. I've been punched in the face, literally, multiple times. And nothing I've done is as hard as the startup game. So I really, really recommend finding time to work out and take care of your mental health. It's an investment and it matters. And doing that is work. I used to think to myself, if I'm doing those things, I'm not working and the company's not making progress, and so I'm losing money. But that's not the truth. The truth of the matter is you want to be investing in yourself because your product and your company and the people around you will benefit from it. And this is the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. I think it's probably the best $100 you can spend on an annual basis. Okay, sell first then build. This is another big mistake I've made, another big misconception I've made. So I do mostly tech work and software work. Our product is smart contracts and web applications, and the way I'm wired is I love to just go sit in the code editor for 6 hours and grind it out. I don't have to talk to anyone. It's very safe. It's very comfortable. I get immediate feedback. I can take breaks. It's great. Code editors are great if you're maybe neurotic like me or something. I don't know. But you can't just do that. You can't just build stuff and think things will happen. And that's a mistake that I made. Silicon Valley makes it seem like oh, I just build the right social app and put the right virality features in it, and boom, I don't have to talk to anyone, and I'm an overnight success. It's like, no, very far from the truth. This guy, Naval Ravikant, I think probably he's one of the best, if not the best, like startup gurus out there. If you haven't, my number one recommendation to you in terms of like extra reading on this talk, he has a very famous tweet thread that's called "How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky." It's been instrumental to my personal life philosophy and the way I like to approach business, and it's incredibly valuable. And this is one of his tweets: learn to sell, learn to build. If you can do both, you'll be unstoppable. And I think that's so true, and I totally underweighted the sell part. I'm still learning the sell part, and again, putting my heart on my sleeve, I'm actually a very dangerous builder. I'm confident I could build any software product from the ground up in weeks to months easily. But why? Because I've done that for years and years and years. I get it. And now in the past couple years, I've been learning the sales part. Okay, how do you build a following? What is attention? How do you get people interested in your product? How do you distribute a product in the modern day and age? And it actually turns out that those are kind of the harder problems. At least the way I'm wired, they seem like the harder problems. Because like I'm kind of like a tech numbers guy, so the coding is easy. So to some people, being like developing tech products might seem really hard, and the selling stuff might come easy. But for me, the selling stuff comes a bit harder. So what I'm trying to say to you is, don't just sit in your code editor and build something. Don't just sit in the PowerPoint deck or in the Word editor and just do stuff that you think is good. Start by talking to who you want to sell it to. Start by selling. So this is actually kind of like a meme from HBO Silicon Valley, but it's actually sort of true, not really. But it's just about the fact that sales and product are two sides of the same coin. You will not ever have success without doing sales. Now, sales for you might look like grinding TikToks. It might look like reaching out to 100 people you know to try to get them to try your MVP. Or it might look like running customer acquisition cost calculations and doing paid Facebook ads. It's different for every business, but you have to sell. You really have to sell. Okay, quick story and then on to the next is, do you guys know who that is? Anyone? The top right? Dang, wow. All right, so when I was in college, this was a huge story, but that's Adam Newman of WeWork. So he kind of is a very famous story. There's now, I believe, an Apple TV show about him and building WeWork. Why do I bring up the WeWork guy? Didn't he blow up his $1 billion company? It's like, yeah, kind of. He did some bad stuff, but he's a really good entrepreneur. And I want to tell you about the early days of WeWork that I'm confident if you didn't know who this is, you probably don't know the story. So Adam Newman and his early partner in WeWork, they're in New York, and they had this early idea of like, we want to do a co-working space. More people are doing remote working, more people are working from home, and they thought of this idea of co-working very, very early on back in the day. So what did they do? They did not build first. That's why he's on this slide. They did not build first. Adam Newman would go and beat down the door of a local real estate broker in New York, and he'd say, guys, give me something, like give us a place that we can lease. Give us something we can lease so we can do our co-working concept. And they're like, dude, who the hell are you? Why aren't you wearing shoes? Like, get out of here. Like, no. And they just kick him away. And so for months he persisted. And finally he convinced this real estate broker in New York, they're like, okay, we have this like exposed brick thing in Brooklyn, like you could try it. And he's like, great, we're in. And so before even having a product, they did not even have a space. As soon as they realized like, okay, we can give this a run, what they did is they went to that exposed brick, single floor place in Brooklyn, they took out tape, they marked out all the desks, and they just started pounding the phones. And before they had no money. They had no money. So they just signed up for like a huge lease in New York City with no money. And by pounding the phones and grinding sales, selling before they built, they were able to pre-sell every single desk in the room before WeWork launched. And so day one they launched with no money, and they were already making a profit and making their lease payments because Adam Newman is a sales god, no matter your opinion of him. And I think that's an incredible story. Okay, another one, because again, I've literally been in your shoes. Everyone's like, oh, I just need VC funding. I just need to get into Y Combinator, like it's all gonna work. It's like, no, wrong. So let me explain that to you. This one might hit you guys hard. Though the Genesis money helped, so thank you guys. So you probably don't need funding, you need conviction. So if you're doing software especially, like an exception to this is like stuff in the physical world, but even then, you probably don't need funding. And what do I mean by that? You can be like Adam Newman. You can be a hardcore entrepreneur. You can go out and prove the opportunity, do the work, put in the elbow grease, get early sales, get early signups. You can sell stuff to people before you even have a product with enough hustle, and and get money coming in the door. And you don't what you don't need to get to the next level is venture funding. There is a few circumstances in which venture funding can be really good. Basically, you want to go faster, or we need to go build this big physical thing that costs money, and we can't buy this piece of real estate without funding. So, but you guys aren't doing that. I know the nature of the apps that people are cranking out, and you probably don't need funding. And to repeat it, especially in software, if you're in software, get an apartment with your co-founders, get an apartment with your team, and just bang it out. Elon talks about he's very proud of saying, you won't starve. Literally, you won't starve. So they brought snacks for you guys. You literally can't starve. So you don't really even need money for food. Most of you can live on your parents' couch if you have to. And so you really don't need money. And the benefit of not taking money is if you can get it right and get it profitable from the get-go and be like Adam Newman, profitable early on, the odds of you hitting it and being a billionaire and playing that scaling game where you just compound up into the right for decades go up massively, massively. And a lot of things, there's actually a lot of problems with venture capital. Because when you start taking other people's money, more money, more problems. Now all of a sudden, you might have different opinions than your VCs. They're trying to flip you guys in 5 to 10 years, and they want an exit. And maybe you want to build this thing as a lifelong company. And I just encourage you, especially in the early stages, get to product market fit, get it working. Use funding as you need it to keep the squad fed, as I said in the first slide. But generally, you don't need it. You really shouldn't need it. And you can also use debt a lot of the time. So think about that. It's we found an opportunity, but we need money to exploit it. Well, if you've done all the work and you know for a fact that it's a good opportunity, then you can finance it with some debt from a bank, and you don't have to worry about this stuff. So again, I think some of this VC stuff, it's projected in society that you really need this. Look how great our companies are. But a lot of VC-backed founders never see a return on their capital. You know what I mean? They might do something for years and never get paid because VCs have liquidation preferences and all this stuff. And you can research it. There's tons of horror stories out there. And even Travis Kalanick, who I love, he was the week his mother died, a boardroom ousted him, and those with more voting rights booted him from his own company. So again, I hope that makes sense. And again, feel free to ask a question if it doesn't. You probably don't need funding. You just need to work hard. Oh, now there's this really cool indie hacker trend too, which I totally love. And if I could go back knowing what I know now, and I was in your shoes, I'd be trying to be like these guys. Be like these guys, not like the venture-backed person. And so this guy's really cool. Pat Walls. He runs a product called Founder Story, which has a lot of good intel on it. But he's an indie hacker, and so it's just one-man company doing millions of dollars of revenue a year. This guy was recently on Lex Fridman. His name is Peter Levels, I believe, and Levels.io on Twitter. And he's an indie hacker he posts everything publicly. He shows you exactly what he's building. He just builds apps that he thinks are cool, and he travels the world and does whatever he wants, and he makes millions of dollars a year doing it. So one thing that's not really reflected in these slides, but I think to quickly backtrack and then proceed, is in the modern age, there's way too much leverage available to you. So what does that mean? Think about the bodega worker. I love the bodega in West Campus I used to go to all the time, called Orange Market, Omar. And those guys, if you run a bodega, you're working really hard. You're stocking the shelves in the morning, it's open 24/7, you're putting in all these work. The bodega worker is working much harder than the tech company CEO in terms of how much muscle is moving day to day. They're moving boxes and all this stuff. Tech company CEO drinks a cup of coffee, does calls all day. It's different kinds of work, but why do I bring that up? Because leverage is everything. You want to be the tech company CEO who has tons of people working for him in the form of labor leverage, has tons of upside in what they're doing in the form of equity, skin in the game, owning a piece of a business. and has all of these bots and technologies working for them while they sleep, right? Uber has tons of servers in the cloud that's like making their navigation system work, and they don't have to manually like pay out drivers. It's all automatic, and they built this money machine in the cloud. And so even though like you can, what I'm saying is you can physically work much less than a bodega worker, but by utilizing leverage, building the right software product, building the right hardware product, you can have 10x, 100x, 100,000x outcomes compared to that. Okay, so I think this is one of the last, probably the last slide, and this is probably the #1 thing I would have, if I could go back and tell myself again, summer before senior year, I was incorporating this company, and again, I'm aware, I have a lot to prove. I'm early in my career, but from what I do know, this is for sure true, and that is you only lose if you quit. You only lose if you quit. If you keep playing that game where we're going to take the next shot on goal, we're going to get punched in the face, we're going to pick ourselves back up, and yeah, we might need to take a week off, we might need to go for a walk, we might need to get the meditation out. That's fine, that's a part of the game. And you get back up and you keep fighting, I promise you, in 10 years, everyone will say, wow, he got lucky, overnight success. But what they don't see, the way society's wired, it's very short-term oriented. They don't see you putting in the work. So this is really an essential thing for you guys. It's like, if you never quit, you will win. You literally can only lose if basically you quit or you die. And if you die, it doesn't matter anyways, because you're dead. So it's like just don't quit. Just keep trying. And maybe you're attacking the wrong problem. Great. What's the next best thing we can do? Mountain climbing analogy. We went to this peak. It's not here. There's just trolls here. It's like, all right, go back down. Keep going back up. You know what I mean? Like, figure it out. Keep swinging. And again, I think if you go into this game and you say, like, all right, like, I'm going to put a decade into this, and maybe nothing happens. But I know at the end of the decade, I'll have gained insane skills, I'll have lived my dreams, and I'll have left behind me an incredible story that I can tell my kids in the future, then that's totally worth it in my view. I think entrepreneurship's amazing. And what you're fundamentally doing is you're trying to make the world a better place. You're trying to build things that people will pay you for, which means you're providing them more value than you're extracting from them. And that's just magical. This is like a really good book I'd recommend you read. Best book I read this year. It's called Endurance. These guys literally go to Antarctica around World War I, and they get stranded there. Their boat's stranded in Antarctica. They have like no food, and they're nowhere near civilization. And it's just an incredible story of like never giving up, and probably one of the best real-world examples that exists. So that's all I got for you. Good luck. Thank you. I'm around in Austin. I plan to keep building my company here and doing investing here. So hit me up if I can be helpful. I've already talked, at least to Max before, and I'm impressed with the stuff coming out here. And again, I've been in your shoes. It would warm my heart to see more people come through this school and be very successful. It's incredible. That would be amazing to me. I love this university. I love going to the football games. I guess as some final parting thoughts, I'm kind of like a bundle of axioms, and there's a ton of stuff I left out. So again, I'm happy to talk to people and see what helps, but this Steve Jobs quote is great. It's like, there's like this famous email he sent himself when he was dying. He sent it to himself on his iPad. And it basically boils down to the fact that all this stuff I take for granted, like language, technology, this chair I'm sitting on, it was all built by people. This university was built by people. These food products were built by people. This laptop was just built by people. You can be those people, right? Like everything that you enjoy and probably take for granted was done at one point, once upon a time, was like a bunch of people getting together and be like, yo, I think we have an idea, let's go for it. You know what I mean? And that's magic. It's very romantic. I think startups are incredibly romantic, and I couldn't recommend it enough as like a career path and a way to live. This is a snippet from How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky. Again, #1 recommendation coming out of this. There's a lot of good Chinese proverbs too that can help you. But okay, so now that's all I have, and let's do questions, if any.
It's actually, I think we'll break to hack time.
Okay, great.
Can we hop between the different groups for individual?
Absolutely. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.